Listen, it was the speech that he should have given a year ago. He said when he ran in 2020 that he intended to be a transitional president. And so we took him at his word, and we always thought that it would be best for him to pass the torch and take the gold watch and, walk off stage and preserve a admittedly very good legacy. And he threatened to lose that legacy by running for a second term. So it came really late, but it came, and it came, and people, particularly in the Democratic Party, are really excited about it because now it's a competitive race. And people are very excited about Kamala Harris. I want to say Kamala because Donald Trump is mispronouncing her name clearly intentionally. Listen, I think her stock is way undervalued. I think that Trump and Republicans have cast aspersions about Harris. And what's going to happen is she's exceeding expectations by a lot because Trump has lowered expectations for her, and she's really, she's been an attorney general, vice president, and another thing is that Daniel is that this compacted campaign season, which is only 110 days long now, may actually help Harris because it limits the time that Trump and the Republicans will have to attack her.
Mark, as you say, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump now set to face off in the fall. And for Donald Trump, this has been quite a significant shift because his opponent has now changed from an 81-year-old man to a 59-year-old woman. So how does he adjust his campaign to stay match fit for this race? And what do you expect to happen over the next few months?
Well, this really caught the Trump campaign flat-footed. We know from reporting that they were operating under the assumption that Biden was going to be the president, that he wasn't going to step down. And so they planned accordingly. That's where their resources were. And arguably, that's why they chose J.D. Vance for the vice president, because he was somebody who they thought if they were ahead, they could just pick somebody who would appeal to the base and not expand the tent any further. So they're having to really adjust quickly on the run now. And it's not the campaign that they thought. And now the problem is the old guy now is Donald Trump. And the younger candidate who looks more futuristic, looks more like America, is Kamala Harris.
Yeah, right. Democrats basically flipping the switch here. And Mark, you mentioned J.D. Vance. I want your take on this. Is Trump really having second thoughts about his VP pick?
Well, I think he is. And it's being reported that he is because, as I said, J.D. Vance was somebody who was picked with Joe Biden in mind. I mean, he was somebody who has a lot of appeal to the MAGA base, but he doesn't do anything with diverse voters, with younger voters. And in fact, arguably, he's very problematic for those voters. And now that he's running against a younger, diverse nominee in the Democratic Party, I think if he had it to do it over again, it would be somebody other than J.D. Vance as his vice president.
Okay, fascinating. So speaking of VP picks, of course, we continue to see reports that the Harris campaign is vetting potential candidates here. Who on the shortlist can add votes for Kamala Harris in your view, Mark?
Well, the short list is people mentioning people like Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, Mark Kelly, who's a senator from Arizona, Roy Cooper from North Carolina, Andy Beshear of Kentucky. But Mark Kelly and Shapiro seem to be at the top of the list. Mark Kelly, as you may know, is a former astronaut. His wife is a gun violence survivor and former member of Congress. So he's somebody who's really got a lot of juice right now. People think that she has a very good relationship with him and that there's good chemistry there. So look for Mark Kelly or Shapiro.
I also wanted to ask you about some of the policy points as well. Of course, this election is going to be won and lost on a number of platforms, but critical and front and center for voters is, of course, the economy. We're talking about immigration and we're talking about abortion rights as well. What do you see as Kamala Harris's strengths and weaknesses here? Because we've heard multiple attack points from the Trump campaign on all of these issues. Can she effectively campaign on Biden's legacy here, or is she going to have to shift the Democratic Party over to the right in order to win more votes?
Well, I think that she's going to tack to the center Listen, I think that there's really a pretty strong record on the economy. Biden has a pretty good record. Immigration is a problem. The border is a problem. That's a weak spot for Harris and the Democrats. But she's got a formidable record on, as a former prosecutor, and she's tough. She's going to talk about a prosecutor versus, a convicted felon, and that's an interesting setup. She's going to talk about a young, energized electorate that cares a lot about women's issues, about the fact that Donald Trump overturned Roe v. Wade. So on abortion rights, on democracy, on arguably they'll debate the economy, but they created a lot more jobs than Donald Trump did in his administration, and I think that she's got a pretty good record to run on. And as I said, I think she's going to exceed expectations. And I think the mistake that Donald Trump and Republicans have made is that they've lowered expectations a lot. And as you know, she's already raised over $100 million in just a couple of days, which is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, of course, winning the backing of not just Democrats, but also donors here, Mark, which was critical as well following President Joe Biden's exit from the race. What do you expect to happen next year in terms of these campaigns? And in your experience, I don't want to date you here, sir, but you've been doing this for a really long time. If you were advising either side, what would you be saying to these candidates?
Well, what I would say to the Harris campaign is you got lightning in a bottle right now, and take advantage of it, particularly in the next couple of weeks, because this is a definitional moment for Harris. A lot of America doesn't really know her very well. They know that she's the vice president, but not much beyond that. They don't know her story. And the Trump campaign is going to very aggressively try and define her before she has an opportunity to do that. So I think that's what she needs to do. And she needs to just keep a fire burning on the enthusiasm, because the one thing that's really changed in the equation, Daniel, is that when it was Biden versus Trump, the Democrats were suffering from a 25-point enthusiasm gap. In other words, Trump voters were 25 points more enthusiastic about Trump than Democrats were about Biden. That's changed overnight, and I'm sure that those numbers are equal or better for Harris now. So the key is to keep the momentum going. For Trump and the Republicans, my advice would be stay away from the sort of dog whistle racist stuff. They're saying she's a DEI hire, which is, the diversity, equity, and inclusion idea, and that she's just a diversity hire. She's only gotten the nomination because she's a black woman. I think that's really problematic. I think it offends a lot of people. The way to go after her is to say, listen, Joe Biden was old and out of touch. She's just younger, but more out of touch, and she's more liberal. She's in San Francisco. She blew the border, which was her job responsibility. If you didn't like Joe Biden and you didn't like his policies and thought they were too liberal, just wait till you see Kamala Harris. That's the Republican line of attack.